Welcome to Albion, Michigan, and our celebration today of one of the coolest things that this town could have. We're going to have a T-ball park to honor our history. This unique location is kind of in a triangle of knowledge. You've got the museum here, the library here, and this will be some of our sports knowledge. Today's celebration is a culmination of years of planning, patience, and dogged determination through a pandemic. Under the leadership of Janet Domingo and Linda Kolmodin, volunteer co-chairs of the Restore Our Coke Sign, Bring Art and History Downtown campaign, this T-ball garden represents a long history of youth sports in Albion, and to honor legendary coach and teacher Jerry Sacharski and the T-ball game's roots. The garden is a cooperative venture between the Calhoun County Land Bank and the Albion Community Foundation. This small plot was part of a gift to Albion for the Foundation's 50th anniversary. Additional improvements include the statue and plaque to be unveiled today. Benches, fence, and expanded landscaping came from the Restore Our Coke Sign Fund. Money was raised for these art installations and additional landscaping through a matching patronicity campaign provided by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Donated funds were then held by the local Albion Community Foundation. And first up to speak today from the Albion Community Foundation, its Executive Director, Shane Williamson.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much for showing up this morning to this T-ball dedication. I'm Shane Williamson. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Foundation here in Albion. I was hired in the middle of the pandemic, and so very excited to be out here in person with all of you today. I want to say that the Community Foundation for over 52 years has been supporting placemaking in Albion. This T-ball garden in conjunction with the Land Bank for Calhoun County is just one of those projects. Our very first being the park down by the Coke sign when we were formed 52 years ago. This came to fruition for our 50th anniversary. The Land Bank gave us applied for a grant to say, hey, we want to fix up some of our properties here in Albion to beautify them and make them not so much an eyesore for folks. And Tim Krause, Executive Director at the time, said, hey, do you want to do this to a few spaces? And so three lots later, that came along, and Linda Kolmodin and Janet Domingo said, let's make them even better. And so this morning, I want to make sure on behalf of the Land Bank that we thank some of the contractors that helped make this possible. Chapman Nursery and Landscaping, Wilbur Plumbing, Ruff and Krieger, and Schaefer Ready Mix. We're all involved on the Land Bank side in getting this property online, and I wanted to make sure we mentioned them this morning, and I'm sure Janet and Linda and all the speakers this morning, yes. There are lots of thank yous to go around, so we'll be doing a lot of that this morning. So thank you for coming out this morning. Thank you for supporting this project, and we look forward to doing many more for the next 50 years.
Before we move on, we would also like to point out that we might want to give your thoughts and prayers to original Albion T-ball family, the Estelle family, who had a tragedy occurred this week in town, so we want to know we are thinking of them. Today's events, after we have the unveiling of the plaque and the statue, will also include a kids' T-ball game, followed by an old-timers T-ball game at Victory Park. Dennis Reed will be on hand with his hot dog cart with chips and a drink, and water will be on hand for those of you who need that. So we're going to continue this exciting program today. My name is Mitch Lutsky, and I'm a member of the Society of American Baseball Research, and I wrote a book on black baseball a few years ago. And I'm a graduate of Albion High School, class of 1980, and as many of you, I was a T-ball player. In 1968, my first year, I was on the Astronauts. I remember Danny Kaiser was my first baseman. The next year was on the Dudley Do-Rights, and our end of the year celebration, we went to Craig and Mark Union's house and went swimming in their pool and had hot dogs with all the ketchup we could put on. And the next year, I'm pretty sure I was on the Fred Flintstones. In addition, Mr. Sacharski was my 8th grade civics teacher at the junior high, And so I knew him as a teacher, as an old guy. I did not know I had a legend teaching me about government in 8th grade at the junior high. And I do remember one of his sons was living in Hawaii, which we thought that was so totally cool because Hawaii is a long way from Albion. So without further ado, I hope that all of you who have your T-ball memories and remember your teammates and your players and your coaches will hearken back to that time. And today we're here to honor your memories through the family of Mr. Sacharski, his children, and others who played ball, coached ball, and of course helped to fundraise at this wonderful facility. Now up is Mr. John Sims.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a little short for this, so I'll try to just speak up. I hope you hear me. My name's John Sims.
You can pull it down, John. And pull a little closer to you. There you go. How's that?
You can do it. I can do it. We'll get through this. My name's John Sims. I was born in Albion, Michigan in 1951. So you know I played T-ball, as they call it. We called it Pee-wee. I don't know what the hell T-ball is. We played Pee-wee baseball. And Pee-wee baseball was great. It was a wonderful thing that we never heard of. My memories of that are mine. I'm 70 years old now, so you guys have your memories. Some of you I actually recognize. Some of you I don't. But we all played together, and we know what it was like. I remember going that first night down to the Washington Gardner Auditorium, and they showed a clip of a World Series game. Bill Sacharski hit a home run to win the World Series that year. Jesus, third baseman for the Pittsburgh Pirates. God, it was ages ago, but it was the greatest thing. My dad took me, and I was going to sign up to play baseball like all the big kids on the block. You know, we always played. I lived on First Street. It was a dirt street. We had dirt streets in Albion at that time, and we'd set out in the road, and that's where we played ball. And they'd throw me rollers so I could hit it with a bat and run like heck, and then they'd throw me out, and then I could catch all the time because that's all I was good for. But I got to play baseball. When I signed up for that, the most exciting thing of that year was we got uniforms. And we went down to the field house, and they handed you out a new uniform. And you thought you were the biggest thing on the block, because the first thing you did when you got home was you put that uniform on, and you went and showed everybody in the neighborhood that you were going to play Pee-wee baseball. And your family got into it. My father, my brother, everybody taught me how to play because you had to go play. And my dad worked every day, and he worked after work. He'd go work in another job. So my brother would teach me. My brother was 17 years older than me, so I had a good teacher. But then I got to the baseball field, and we met a guy named Mr. Sacharski. We didn't call him anything but Mr. Sacharski. He looks just like that guy right over there sitting down. He looks just like him. That's what he looked like when I met him. And I have two words that describe him to me in my memory. Benevolent authority. He was always kind. He never yelled at anybody. He was as patient as he could be with every one of us. And some of us were just hellions. And we knew it. We didn't care. And he treated us all good. He would be patient with us and do the same thing over and over and over again until we learned how to do it. I hope he was that patient with those guys. I really do. Because he must have wore it all out using it on us. And we called him JJ behind his back. I don't know who came up with that, but it was supposed to be Jerry Jerome. And we called him JJ behind his back, but we never said it to him because he was Mr. Sacharski. And he stayed with me for years because I played rec ball here in town, all the way up to high school and then through high school. I played with Boot Tab there. I remember he was a varsity when I first played varsity in Albion High School. And it was a great time. Yeah, I remember lots of people from that time. I remember Craig Phipps, Kenny Supernaw, Steve Estelle, one of my good friends, Waverly Short, guys that, I just played with forever. And these were teammates. That's all they were. They were teammates. They were your friends. You played with them. That's what it was all. I remember Joe Jackson years later stealing a home run from me. I yelled at him because he climbed up on a fence and caught that ball and it was going out of the field. But we were good friends. I miss those times. I miss Mr. Sacharski because, you know, he always took the time. He was always good to us. And, you know, I'd never met anybody like that. He was a father figure to every one of us. And he never yelled at anybody. That was the thing I always thought was great. How did he not yell? Remember the field? I had to walk over there this morning. I had to walk over to that field and look at it, and I remembered it. And home plate's still there. The plate's gone, but you can tell where home plate was. You can tell where third base was. And I remember those guys that could really hit the ball when I was playing left field in first year as Pee Wee. They'd hit it into the woods, and oh, that was something. Somebody put one in the woods, my God, they should be playing pro ball. You know, that's what it was like. I loved every minute of it. We played, I remember years later, we played an all-star game when I was 7 years old, I think. Went up to Lansing, and I got to ride up with Steve Estelle's mom. They drove us up because my mom didn't drive. My dad had to work, so she got Mrs. Estelle to take me up with him. And we went up and we played this game, and it was on TV. We were so excited. It was the biggest thing we'd ever done. Got home, and we were just big stuff. And then years later, George Johnson, some of you may remember George. He played with us. George comes up to me and he says, you know, we're in the Hall of Fame. I said, what? He says, you remember that game we were in? That one on TV? He says, yeah, they play that at the Hall of Fame every now and then to show the T-ball exhibition. I says, you're kidding. He says, no. George passed last year. I miss him. I miss a lot of guys I played with. I'm glad to be here and happy to be here. But these guys, we owe a debt to your dad. I don't think any of us, I can still look at him. I see him. I go down that field and I can see him. And I think everybody who played Pee Wee ball with him remembers that. You know, we have very few people in our life as young people who make a mark like that. And I'm 70 years old and I still remember that guy with very great kindness. Love even. He was good to us. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Waverly Short. I am, to say it plainly, I am one of the first ones which we call the first fruit of Mr. Sacharski's Pee Wee League. Mr. Sacharski was like a dad to us as children in the city as he was to these men. Treated you nice, treated you fair, stimulated your brain by making you think about what you was about to do or what you thought you were going to do. And once you thought about it, you always end up changing your mind. Some of these things that Mr. Sacharski taught us was things that stuck with you for life. I look out, I see these guys. We started out in Pee Wee baseball. It escalated to the turkey trot. Y'all didn't know Mr. Sacharski had a turkey trot for us, huh? Oh, we run around there, and the final was at the midget baseball diamond. That was the finish line. And you had to run if you wanted that turkey. So it was one of the best times of my life. some of the associations that was made during that time continue to grow. They grow in terms of remembering Mr. Sacharski and some of the things that he said that stuck with me and helped form me as the person that I am. So, like John said, we owe your dad a great, what can I say? He was good to me. And I know anybody else that was in the T-ball, ask them. They'll tell you he was good to them. Because that's how he was. He he motivated us. Once he found out what you wanted to do in life, he pushed you in that direction. And it was up to you if you wanted it or if you didn't want it. But he made sure you knew everything you needed to know towards success. Thank you.
Well, after hearing John and Waverly talk, I hope I can get through what I'm going to say without breaking down. I would like to thank Linda Kolmodin and Janet Domingo and others in Albion who are making this memorial possible. My dad would be very thankful and so very proud of Albion. T-ball started in Albion in 1956. I was 9 years old, so I could not play T-ball since it was for only ages 6 to 8. Starting at age 12, I umpired, kept score, and instructed the kids in T-ball. And those were some fun times for me. My dad wanted the kids to learn the fundamentals of baseball while playing T-ball, or as it was called sometimes, pee-wee ball. Notice the word fun in fundamental. So he wanted the kids to have fun and at the same time learn basic skills. Being a teacher, he made T-ball a classroom activity on grass. While hitting the ball was important, Dad was more concerned with what the fielders would do after the ball was in play. So he had the umpires double as instructors. So prior to each play, they would instruct each fielder that if the ball was hit to them, where they should throw it. Dad created many rules specifically for T-ball, and each rule had a purpose. For example, there was no pitcher. A line 45 feet out from home plate was drawn. The batter had to hit the ball past that line for it to be a fair ball and in play. This simple rule taught the players to take a full swing and hit the ball as hard as they could. Another example was having large circles around the bases. And so around each base so the fielder could stand in the circle rather than on the base. This gave the runner and the fielder enough room to avoid collisions and help them feel safer, more confident when they're running and making a play. And there were also many other rules crafted purposely by Dad. And I have to admit that about halfway through the season, These young T-ball players were hitting the ball well, running and fielding better, and more importantly, learning baseball skills while having fun and making friends. And some of that friendship lasted through high school and beyond. I'm proud of my dad's accomplishments, and I hope Dad is looking down today, as he would be very humbled and honored at what you are all doing to commemorate T-ball. Today, 66 years later, T-ball is played in different ways in different cities. But we all know it was started and played the right way here in Albion, Michigan. Many thanks to all of you.
All right. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Just kind of, you know, what Dave said, you know, about being played the right way. My son who's here, he played T-ball, my daughter played T-ball, and so on. And there were a couple of times when they would play, and I'd be sitting and I'd be watching them, and I'd be kind of grumbling and groaning and so on, you know. And, you know, and his mom would poke me in the side, and I'd just look and say, but that's not how you play this. This is not what you do. So kind of along that vein. I was one of the original 60. In 1955, I played baseball. I was 6 years old. And we had pitcher, catcher, and of course playing with older guys. When I played in the field, I was kind of that kid whose permanent position was right field. Okay, and kind of the closer I played to the foul line, the better. At bat, I was that kid whose the outcome of the at bat was more dependent upon the pitcher than me. So if the pitcher was throwing strikes, yeah, I'd be out. But if he wasn't, I got to go to first base. Okay. In that summer of 55, I have a picture, black and white picture, and the team I played on, the Grand Rapids Jets, we won the championship. And like I said, I have this picture, and the team is in, of all places, the back of a pickup truck in a parade. And there's a sign on the side that says Grand Rapids Jets champions. I even still have the trophy. Okay, from that, the front plate is blank, but you know, I know what it's about. In the summer of 1956, everything changed. The whole game that we played changed. And it was so cool. I mean, as a 7-year-old kid, I mean, we actually got to go up to bat, and we actually got to hit the ball, you know? And you could take a stance, and that ball was sitting there on the tee, you know, and you could just kind of drive through it. There were no free passes. There were no strikeouts, okay? You had to make it to first base. The guys in the field, they had to field the ball, they had to catch the ball, they had to throw the ball, and like almost every batter, unless somebody, the only strikeout was you had 3 chances to get across that 45-foot arc that Dave was talking about. But every play, something happened, you know, and just like, you know, Dave said, you know, after a while, I mean, your fundamentals and your skills, because you're not standing around. Like say, every play, and tell you what, as a 7-year-old, that was so cool, especially after, you know, the experience as a 6-year-old. And it was even better, you know, when you were an 8-year-old and you were the oldest one, right? you know, because you know, we're kind of the one on top. A few years ago, I probably going through my dad's archives. He, honest to God, I mean, if you want to talk about a pack rat, he had in the basement, okay, score sheets, you know, from like every season, not only Pee Wee, not only midget, not only junior league, and so on. I think my mom told a story one time. Larry Arnold was there with another guy to do some work, and they were down in the basement, and she said it was so quiet down there. Nothing was happening. Well, Larry and the other guy, they found the archives, and they're going through and they're saying, "Oh yeah, man, all right, I had 3 hits in this game." So I found an article from the Albion Evening Recorder, like 1957, and the article was about the 2 Willies. The 2 Willies who played on the same team, and they set a Pee Wee baseball record by each getting 5 hits in that game. I was one of the Willies. The other was Willie Tabb. Okay? Yeah. 2 Willies. And I tell you what, dude, far as I know, to this day, that still stands, man. Come on. Unbreakable. 2 Willies. Unbreakable, baby. As one of the players who kind of, you know, went through, you know, the early years and so on, playing Pee Wee baseball was an absolute thrill as a kid for that age group, 6, 7, and 8 years old. I coached baseball for 25 years in Flushing, and when my kids would have trouble, whatever, executing, I'd sometimes look at them and go, "Geez, come on, guys. I learned that and did that when I was playing T-ball." So it was for me personally, and I'm sure others would say it was a fantastic experience. And one of the things, I guess, is that it brought a lot of the kids at a young age, kids in Albion of a young age, who, you know, in the programs, who might not have had contact with each other otherwise. And the great thing is we were able to develop relationships and forge friendships. You know, I think like John said, I mean, that still go on today. So thank you, and thank you everyone for coming. This is fantastic. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Sacharski. I'm the oldest of the Sacharski boys. I was an umpire at the first game on June 25th, 1956, and I was 13 years old at the time, and I'm just thoroughly excited about this turnout today. John and Waverly, thank you for your really kind and generous remarks. I see a lot of faces out there that I immediately recognize, but those faces are from maybe 60 years ago. So I know who you are, but I need to know your name. So I'd like to have an opportunity after this to get together with everybody as much as possible and exchange experiences. I want to call out 2 people, Don Nowry, Freddie Wilder. These are 2 outstanding baseball players from the city of Albion, and they just sort of predated the time that baseball began taking off in Albion starting in 1955-56. But Don Nowry and Freddie Wilder, you guys put your hands up back there. I see Freddie back there. Is Don still here? Okay. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to recognize all the people who helped make T-ball successful. T-ball started with 60 players in... Hey, I think you could have been a shortstop. Thank you very much. T-ball started in 1956 with 60 players. By 1960, there were over 200 players participating, and the sport had begun to gain national recognition by stories appearing in newspapers across the country. And that led ultimately that summer to the first televised T-ball game ever at Michigan State University. And as somebody mentioned, I think it might have been John, you can see that at the Hall of Fame if you go to the Hall of Fame. But at any rate, what I want to do is recognize all the organizations and people that made that acceleration, that escalation so fast, made it possible. And the first one I want to recognize is Arnie Spahn, head of the Albion Recreation Department. Arnie Spahn immediately engaged and understood the value of the summer baseball program and T-ball in particular. Next, these are two really important supporters of Albion activities and baseball. And you wonder, why did you get your uniform? There are two things. I run into T-ball players during the last 20 years or so, and there are two things they remember: their trophy if they won one, but their uniform. Everybody remembers their uniform. Who made that possible? The Albion Merchants Association and the Albion Manufacturers Association. Both of those associations were generous contributors to the summer baseball program and T-ball in particular. So those uniforms arrived here courtesy of those two organizations. Mayor William Rieger embraced the concept, and he supported materially the development of T-ball. Chuck Charmeda, I don't know how many of you might remember Chuck Charmeda or the Charmeda name. Chuck Charmeda was a young man at that time, had recently graduated from Albion High School. He was head of the Albion City Works Department. And when we decided to build a T-ball diamond down by the river, all of a sudden one morning all these city dump trucks showed up, the excavating machines, some smaller machines, and they put that thing together in about 4 or 5 hours, and it was very impressive what they did. So City of Albion, big booster. Albion Evening Recorder. I heard someone gasp over there a little while ago when they heard the word evening, and and I remember the Albion Evening Recorder. They were a huge supporter because they would carry game results from day to day, and it was must reading when that recorder hit your porch in the afternoon. Radio station WALM 1260 on your dial. You could not start the day. I think it was at 7 o'clock in the morning. The baseball program came on, and the results from the previous day were covered. The schedule for that day was covered. If there were any announcements, that was covered. And I think every household in Albion who had a young man playing T-ball, they were all tuned in at 7 o'clock in the morning. And they also covered some games. They were a tremendous booster and supporter. The T-ball supervisors, the supervisors weren't much older than the players themselves, but we had, and that was part of the reason for the success, I think. But we had three in particular who helped to pioneer this. First of all, Jesse Bomarito. Jesse was from day one an umpire. Larry Behrman, I don't know how many, Larry was about 2 or 3 years ahead of my class, but Larry Behrman was a pioneer in T-ball as well. Fred Hariff. I think everybody, remembers Fred Harriff. So those three people really spent a lot of time, as David was saying. They were coaching, they were counseling, they were advising, and so forth, and they helped the game move along. Without their presence and without their expertise, some of these games might have dragged on, but they ripped along at a pretty good pace because of them. The T-ball players themselves, I want to thank, because you guys did a terrific job. I don't think in the 3-4 years that I was directly associated with T-ball, I can't remember that we had a dropout. I can't remember that somebody signed up, played a game or two, and then we never saw them again. I think almost every player who signed up engaged with that game and stayed with that game. So I want to thank all the T-ball players who made this possible. And by the way, tremendous skill sets and tremendous development during the year. I think Will alluded to that, the amount of progress that was made. So by the end of the season, you had games instead of 24 to 34, you had games that were 6 to 8 or 5 to 3 or that sort of thing. Just amazing baseball. The next group I want to recognize, the T-ball mothers. Yeah, I'll tell you what, nobody realizes how much the mothers of Albion made T-ball a success. And why did they? First of all, they made sure kids got up and got out the door and down to the park. And at that time, most of the kids came to the park on bicycles. They weren't delivered. The other thing they did was they kept those uniforms in immaculate shape. Creased, ironed, creased uniforms. And they were terrific supporters of the program all the way through the concepts of the program and so forth. So a big shout out to the mothers of the time. And speaking of mothers, behind every T-ball pioneer who goes out there and is pioneering T-ball, there's a woman. So I want to give a shout out to our mother, Itola Sacharski, because she helped make a lot of this possible from behind the scenes. And you guys, I'm sure you know how people make things possible from behind the scenes. But she did a terrific job on that, so she herself we want to recognize. And finally, I want to acknowledge the Restore the Coke Sign team, Linda and Janet. You know, you can kind of liken to what they're doing to baseball. They have 3 projects. They had the mural, a malleable mural project. That's their project. They conceived it, they organized it, they got it funded. Next was the Coke sign. That was second on their list. Same thing, conceived it, organized it, funded it, and so forth. And then the final is the T-ball. So what I'd like to acknowledge is that they are batting 1,000. And then finally,
and they were all they were 3 home runs.
Yeah, 3 home runs, absolutely, into the trees. And finally, I'd like to, if you could bear with me here for a moment. Our father spent a lot of time in Hawaii after he retired from school, teaching and so on here in Albion, and he picked up a lot of Hawaiian traditions and really embraced the philosophy of Hawaii. I think the second summer he was there, spring. The second spring he was there, he ambled up to the park that was near our home because they were staying in our home. And he ambled up in the park, and there was a spring in Hawaii. They've got springtime youth baseball. And he was sitting around on a picnic table watching how teams were practicing on the various fields. And he did that a few times, and finally one of the coaches of one of the teams, I think the kids were would have been T-ball players here, but in Hawaii they have a person throw the ball or pitch the ball. They don't hit it off a tee. And the coach said, you know, I see you here. He said, do you know anything about baseball? Would you like to help coach? and he said, yes, I would do that. The Padres, that was the name of the team. Anyway, the Padres, they were already 0-3, and by the end of the season, they were, I think, about 12-3 and took the championship. no one, he never told anybody who he was or where he came from. And to this day, the coaches, the kids, the parents have no idea who this guy was that came off the picnic table. Well, to celebrate that spirit of his, we have a tradition in Hawaii of passing to a person who has done a great service to the community, what we call a kukui nut lei. The kukui nut, it's a nut, comes from the kukui tree, and it was brought to Hawaii by the early Polynesian voyagers, and they planted these trees. And so now for people of achievement in Hawaii, they're presented with a kukui nut lei. So we have a kukui nut lei here, and what we're going to do is my classmate, Anna Merritt, is going to bestow the kukui nut lei on me, and then my spirit or my mana will transfer to that lei. Then I'm going to give that lei to David. I'm going to put it on him. David's spirit, his mana, will transfer to that lei. And then to William, and William's spirit will transfer. In Hawaii, they can put kukui nut leis on gravestones, and they stay there for years because the weather is always so good. But in Michigan, one Michigan winter would crack the kukui nuts, and when they get cracked, then they all fall apart. So Anna is going to be the keeper of the kukui nut lei here in Albion, so the lei stays in Albion, stays safe, and on the birthday of my father and my mother, she's going to take the lei to the cemetery each year in order to keep that spirit going. So Anna, where are you? Here. Oh, you're right there. Okay, so what you do is just put this over me like that. Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to kiss David, but you can kiss me. Yeah, bring them up. Get them, or yeah, come, have them come up right now. Okay, so my mana is passing to the lei. I'm going to now present it to David, but I'm not going to kiss David.
How about a hug?
Okay, a hug.
All right. Okay.
Tell something. Now over here we have Stephen Sacharski, William's son, and his two children, Nora and Jet. And we're going to take advantage of passing the lei on and getting their mana into this lei as well.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and we're just so impressed with the turnout, and it's actually a blessing to be able to see people that we haven't seen in a long time, and so we're deeply appreciative of each and every one of you who came here this morning. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Well, I'm Janet Domingo, half of the Coke team. Other half sits here. That's what we go by, the Coke team. Don't make jokes. Okay. This is the completion of our 3 projects from the Restore Our Coke Sign campaign, which we started in 2019. We already talked about the Coke sign is there, the Albion mural, and now here we are at the T-ball garden. Now, many years ago, when I was working at the hospital, I made a video about Albion for physician recruitment. I named it Small Town, Big Heart. Well, the town's a bit smaller, but it hasn't changed. As a result of a very successful campaign, we were able to continue with our goal to bring art and history downtown by enhancing Superior Street with additional Christmas decorations. So we lighted snowflakes along Ash Street all the way to Michigan Avenue. And also, every street lamp has colorful red bows on it. Also, Brunellis Park, where the Christmas tree stands, that has Christmas lights on it and a star at the top. And this year we'll add colored lights, multicolored lights to the tree. We also placed a picnic table in Brunellis Park. We thought someone might want to take a break or have a chat or even a meeting there, or just sit and enjoy the Coke sign on the picnic table. And we're not quite done yet. We have a couple other small projects in the works. Now, I'm a detail person, and I'm thankful for the internet, but I still need help sometimes, so thank you to Jan, Shad, and Anna Merritt, my good and loyal research assistants. Sometimes you just need people to have the answers for you. Special thanks also to Kevin Monroe, who said to me one day, "If you ever need help with anything, let me know." Well, that wasn't smart, was it? So I called him, and I thank him very much. And thanks to Kelly Kidder from Dickerson Music, Schaefer Ready Mix, here's your cement, and Randy Markovich of Randy's Lawn Care, the hardest working guy in town. Now, remember, this project began in 2019. Chris Ruff and the crew of Ruff and Krieger Builders Incorporated, and of course Clarence Ruff, steadfast and dependable, have been with me all this time. So here we are after 3 years. And this is what it was like that all these people that worked on this that I just mentioned all contributed to this garden. And it's Albion. Holy smoke. Okay. Everyone was invested in this, they worked on it. Each step as we progressed, they were as pleased as I was with the outcome. I called it a labor of love. I don't know, but that's what I thought it was. So thanks again for everyone and everyone that supported us. Linda, the other half of the Coke sign, Linda Kolmodin.
Well, as Janet said, I'm Linda Kolmodin, the other half of the Restore Our Coke Sign team. People often say, well, get your committee together. And other than Aaron Schultz, who's helped us out too, Janet and I call each other. What a wonderful day for Albion. We've worked for the past 3 years on this T-ball garden, and we've had a great supporter living right next door. Dwayne Pullman. If you'd come forward, please. Where's Dwayne? You didn't go inside, did you, Dwayne? Come on up. Come on down, as they say. Now, Dwayne has been the unofficial caretaker of this garden since the first shovel was turned to create this tribute to the home of T-ball and its coach, Jerry Sacharski. Dwayne promised he would be the watchman for the garden, making sure it stayed as lovely in the future as it is today. For his continued support and love of this community, Jan and I want to recognize Dwayne with this hat. Dwayne can now let everyone know that he is indeed part of the team for our community T-ball garden. Thank you, Dwayne.
You're welcome.
Now, before I sit down, Janet doesn't know I'm going to do this, and she'll be not happy because I know Janet. But I'd like to take a moment to recognize the real driving force behind this garden. Janet took the leadership role, and with her artistic eye, attention to detail, and determination, made this space a wonderful place for our community. I look forward to many more projects together, and am so grateful that we are friends and work together as a team. Janet, thank you for always bringing your A game.
It's very stiff, isn't it? Yeah. There we go.
Okay, we need Waverly Short back up. I think he is standing on the sidewalk there. First thing we're going to do is we're going to have the unveiling of the plaque by Janet and Linda and Waverly as well. I think John Sims is going to come in as well. Okay, I'm going to read what the plaque says here. It says the Donald Ducks, the Davy Crockett's, the Bugs Bunnies, the Porky Pigs, and the Pinocchios, all pioneers in the Pee-wee game commonly known as T-ball.
And the Porky Pigs were the first champions.
Yes, they were. I did research on that. They most certainly were. Jerry Sacharski was a teacher, a coach, and in the summer, the baseball director for the Albion Department of Recreation. Remembering a quote from the coach that changed everything, all these little guys came out to play summer baseball, and I just couldn't send them home. So he redesigned the ball field to accommodate the smaller children, developed fundamentals and rules to allow the 6 to 8-year-old players to participate, and most importantly, he introduced the batting tee. As one of the former players said, if you never hit the ball, you never get on base, so the rest of the rules really don't matter to you. The T-ball concept emerges independently in several places in the 1950s and early 1960s. However, it is collectively known that in Victory Park, Albion, Michigan, on June 25th, which of course is today, but back in 1956, the first organized baseball game to use the tee was played. The game was videotaped by a local television station. In 2000, that video was accepted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame of Cooperstown, New York. 30 boys from Albion are baseball all-stars, and you can find them in Cooperstown. Since the late 1950s, millions of boys and girls have enjoyed and excelled at baseball, thanks to a caring teacher and a coach who knew that to learn the game, you have to play the game. That's on the plaque. And now we're going to unveil the statue that goes in T-ball or Pee-wee Park. Linda and Janet will remove the tarp covering.
Got it.
So as you wrap up your picture taking here, remind you that we have activities at Victory Park for little kid T-ball, Pee-wee baseball, and for retired people. Once again, thank you for coming out today.
Can we ask every T-ball player to raise his hand?
And if you're a T-ball player, you can raise your hand proudly. Boys and girls, that's right. If you're playing today, raise your hand. Thank you once again for those who had any part in this and donating, and have a pleasant 2022.
He's exactly the picture. He's the guy. Give you a moment.
Yeah, I didn't take any pictures in here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, go pose by him. Yeah, come on, all you T-ball players. Let's have all the...